Namaskar, welcome back. Viewers, ever since the Faridabad module was caught by our alert security forces and the parallel Delhi blast near the Red Fort has triggered a new debate about what is now being called white collar terrorism. Is this a new phenomenon? What really is the white collar terrorist? Is he or she more dangerous than the kind of terrorist we have been tackling so far, and what is the best way to fight this new challenge? These are some of the pertinent questions we shall be going through in this special episode of Media Scan this weekend, and for that I have two experts who will help us understand this new phenomenon. But before that, a quick look at what we are talking about.
The recent Red Fort Delhi blast investigation has exposed a new dimension in India's security scenario, white-collar terror module. During the investigations and crackdowns, authorities uncovered a terror network involving highly educated professionals, including doctors, spread across 3 states, Uttar Pradesh, Delhi and Haryana. A white-collar terror network can be understood in the way that it has highly educated professionals blended perfectly into the mainstream society who are radicalized and used to plan or execute terrorist activities. The recent incident shows a shift from conventional militancy to a more sophisticated form of terrorism. In recent blast investigation, officials recovered around 3,000 kilograms explosives and bomb making equipments from highly educated people and made multiple arrests in the 3 states. The emergence of white-collar terror has brought to the front the newest challenges for India's counter-terrorism system, underscoring the need for enhanced vigilance at professional and academic places as well.
So after that quick report on what is now being called the white collar terror, let me take you to our guest for this evening. I have here with me in the DD studio Lieutenant General Syed Hasnain. He has served as the GOC of the 15 Corps based at Badami Bagh, that is Srinagar, and also with us Dr. Abhinav Pandya, author, well-known expert on geopolitical affairs. Welcome both gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And Lieutenant General Hasnain, I shall come to you first. Sir, number one, this white collar terrorism, which basically means highly qualified men and women who live along with us, they mingle in the society, they are professionals, valued members of our society, they're turning into terrorists, and that too hardcore ones. Is this a new phenomenon or has it been around from earlier?
Thank you, first of all, for inviting me for this wonderful program. And yes, I will comment on your question and respond to it from 2 angles. The first is that in India, this is definitely something new. What we have seen in Jammu and Kashmir, which has been the core center of terrorism as such, there have been a large number of different kinds of networks, are mostly run by overground workers. Overground workers are those people who are above the ground, in the sense they are not like terrorists underground, and function as normal professionals or anything like that.
So
mostly
you mean
these are white collar people.
They do not pick up the gun?
That's right. They don't pick up the gun. They are the ones who support from a financial angle, a media angle, ideological angle, and all kinds of things like that, leaving the gun running, leaving the ground aspect of it to the lower and more impoverished sections of society. This is what we have witnessed in India, in Jammu and Kashmir.
Right.
But internationally, we have seen that ISIS, for example, had 40,000 fighters attracted from different parts of the world. Many of them were professionals and well-to-do people. Even if you look at global terror networks, Osama bin Laden himself was an engineer.
Yes.
Ayman al-Zawahiri is a medical doctor. So this is not something new in the international environment. What we are seeing now is a sudden coming of this international footprint now coming into the other parts, the urban parts of India, probably getting imported from Jammu and Kashmir in a slightly different way.
So the obvious question, General, here is, if it is coming to India now, what was visible or reported in other parts of the world, are there certain reasons that it is now sort of being pushed into India?
You see, the lessons which are normally learnt from this, number one, first of all, I think one of the prime reasons why this phenomenon is happening is that the Indian security forces in Jammu and Kashmir in particular have been able to bring the strength of terrorists and who were of a lower, economic kind, from a strength of about over 4,000, they brought it down to 100. Yes. So there aren't enough takers for this kind of a thing. Secondly, the lessons learned from international terrorism, global terrorism, probably bring out the fact that it's much more difficult to detect white-collar terrorists. They are more thinking people, they can fend for themselves, they can look after technology is much easier, and similarly, so overall their operational capability in the ground is of a higher order.
Absolutely. Thank you for putting it so clearly for our viewers, General. I want to come to Abhinav Pandya here. Abhinav, you have put it in quite graphic detail in your book also, and we have had conversations over this. You have gone much in detail, on how these networks operate, how the radicalization process begins, how are the prospective candidates chosen or identified, and then how it goes up the ladder. And now we know that these people whom the general just said were used to be mostly OGWs are now themselves becoming hardcore terrorists. So for the benefit of our viewers, just briefly, can you explain to us how this radicalization and then right up to being a hardcore terrorist, how does this network really operate?
Thank you very much, Smitaji. Just first, I'll request you to briefly allow me to share a small thought on the white-collar terrorism also.
Yes.
Well,
please.
I would like to add something here that white-collar terrorism has existed in Kashmir also. Like all these people who were associated with JKLF like Yasin Malik and NLF like Hashim Qureshi, they were educated people and they tried to copy the tactics of Palestinian terrorism. After that, if you come to the modern times, after even Burhan Wani was an engineer, his brother Mannan Wani was also a PhD candidate at this, I guess, Aligarh University. The universities in Kashmir, mostly the universities have been the center of Jamaat-e-Islami's activities. And even Professor Saddam Padar, who was after 2016, the post-Burhan Wani in the post-Burhan Wani phase, he joined militancy. So this has been a phase which has existed in Kashmir off and on. And I can say that in the past, yes, the entire leadership was the white-collar leadership. Jamaat-e-Islami were white-collar terrorists, but they were mostly in the leadership roles. And the people from the poorer classes, they went to seminaries and they went to Darul Ulooms, they became the foot soldiers. But white-collar soldiers were not absent. Even Zakir Musa was an educated man. So this has existed. Now coming to your question on radicalization networks, see, I think it works differently for different people. People who are going to religious seminaries, let's say someone who starts attending Jamaat-e-Islami gatherings and seminaries, the radicalization process starts there. Then you have Jamaat-e-Islami schools in Kashmir. They destroyed the secular schools back in 1990s and they were replaced by the Jamaat-e-Islami schools, which have much better infrastructure. They pay better salaries to their teachers, but they have a very highly indoctrinating radical curriculum. Boys and girls started going to Jamaat-e-Islami schools and there they were taught a very highly indoctrinating curriculum. And many of them later joined civil services, also academia, police services, media, and they carried these radicalization trends in them. Besides that, there was a segment who would study in Jamaat seminaries or schools and then move on to some other radical outfits or also join Jamaat-e-Islami as such and become a rukun of Jamaat-e-Islami or a district chief of Jamaat-e-Islami or at some position in the state. So this was one, I would say, radicalization network. Then there's this other radicalization network, which is mostly from the Ahle Hadith group. So there are other Ahle Hadith mosques also present in various parts of Jammu and Kashmir, and they mostly follow the Wahhabi line. And Wahhabism and Ahle Hadith is used interchangeably in Kashmir, though there are minor differences which are not really very critical, relevant to this discussion. But that was another radicalization network. Thirdly, what happened after Arab Spring in the West Asia, that also made a huge impact on the psyche of the youngsters in Jammu and Kashmir because of the advent of social media, and they got connected to that. So these pan-Islamist movements also made a massive impact. Besides that, now a factor which has come very prominently in radicalization is what's happening in the Indian hinterland also. The continuous communal polarization and also the, I would say, emergence of communal religious issues that is also making an impact on the minds of the Kashmiri youth. Besides that,
there is no doubt that internet and particularly the social media reaching every person, their devices, has made things easier for the enemies of the nation, even faster. And in the General Hasnain, you may note that in the latest investigation, the updates that we are getting, even vis-a-vis this Faridabad module, we have seen that it is spreading into the hinterland. Not all of these doctors have their roots in Kashmir. There are cases from, we have cases from Uttar Pradesh and other parts of the country. One more point which I want to bring in here is the kind of interest that some women are finding in these networks, and they are not only sort of just sharing information, they have now started playing what, if I may call, a very important role in terms of this white collar terror. How do you look at this new, this completely new and also very complex challenge?
See, ma'am, the overground worker network in India has not been restricted to Jammu and Kashmir. That is for sure. It has been right throughout the country. I can recall 2019 what happened in Sri Lanka. When if you remember the Easter bombings of Sri Lanka were linked to all the networks in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka at that particular time, and was investigated at that particular time, and ISIS was trying to make efforts to do it. The Shami witness, the very famous the controlling station for ISIS, was in Bangalore for 8 months and could not be discovered. They was controlling all the activities of ISIS. Northern India is flush with these kind of networks everywhere, but we have not seen women coming up at the forefront, and we have not seen women coming into acts of terrorism. That is not becoming the full foot soldiers. Even in this particular case, so far we do not have evidence of women becoming foot soldiers, but they are in the support role. Yes, support role, and a very important support role, because suspicion over women is comparatively much lesser. So that is an issue, but also susceptibility to radicalization is very high among women. That is what has been noticed.
Okay. That's very, that's a cause of concern. But General, very quickly, I also want to know from you, because these people are highly qualified, they are professionals, they can very easily mingle in the society, and on the one hand, while it is difficult to detect such people as you've just mentioned, it is also a point that if cases like the Faridabad module keep coming out in the open, it might also sort of create a sense of distrust among citizens of the country, because everybody will start looking at the other with some kind of apprehension. Do you fear that?
That actually, in a situation of proxy war, which is what we are actually under out here in India,
yes,
our adversaries on the other side of the borders, their whole intent is this, creating turbulence in society. One action in Delhi is not their only intent. The impact of that action must travel into the entire society, so that suspicion and mistrust is sown in every family, in every element of society. People should stop giving home rental houses to Muslims, for example, right?
Or to employ.
Or to employ them. Or young students who come giving PG kind of accommodation, not allowing them to live together in certain places. Now, in that kind of an attitude and approach extends into society, there is mayhem everywhere. Because these very people who otherwise would be normal citizens start now acting as virtual overground workers themselves. And that is how networks proliferate all over the country.
So yes, it is complex, and while it is important to fight this new challenge, it has to be done in a manner which does not, make these sinister designs of the enemies a success.
हमारी एजेंसियां इस षड्यंत्र की तह तक जाएगी। इसके पीछे के षड्यंत्रकारियों को बख्शा नहीं जाएगा। All those responsible will be brought to justice.
Abhinav, very quickly, we have in a way tried to explain and identify this new challenge. But how does one go about fighting it? Because it's quite possible that people who are being looked at in a very innocuous manner may turn out to be very dangerous, and that is exactly what happened in the Faridabad module. There are other students studying in the Al Falah University who may have had no idea that some of their colleagues and classmates were into such a sinister game plan.
Thank you very much, Pitaji, for asking this very interesting question. And I must thank General Saab, because General Saab brought a very apt point that such networks and such centers are existing in the entire North India, maybe in parts of South India also, and it's very critical to find out, what they are doing and how they are doing. So how to deal with them, see? So I have two opinions here. Well, large-scale de-radicalization projects have not been very successful. You can see the examples of Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, UK. The governments ran countrywide, large-scale de-radicalization projects, and they invited different imams and maulvis. But that simply ended up in wasteful expenditure without producing any results. Now, coming here, what's happening right now? These white-collar terror modules. We should also look at it from the angle of strategy and tactics. After the abrogation of Article 370, Pakistan has completely changed the strategy because of the fact that NIA did a massive crackdown on the old OGWs and old networks. The Pakistan-centric, Pakistan-supported terror groups decided to completely abandon the old OGWs and recruit a new breed of OGWs who are highly educated and intellectual, as they cannot be identified. And the kind of attacks which they plan to do now require more technical expertise, like handling drones, handling very highly complex explosives. For that, they require these educated intellectuals. So now what we need to do to tackle them is that we need to revamp our intelligence networks and structuring. Okay? You need to have a very robust and strong human networks. You need to get into those groups, and you need those experts, who can crack down or at least penetrate these Telegram channels or encrypted communication applications. So first is the intelligence footprint. Then you have to deal with such organizations like Jamaat-e-Islami, and you have to keep a strict watch on all these Deoband seminaries and other religious institutions. If an institution like Al-Falah is coming up.
Now it is the regular campuses. I mean, we have moved beyond the seminaries and madrasas.
Yes, I'm coming to that.
Yes.
If a university like Al-Falah is coming up in a particular area, and you have a huge contingent of Kashmiri students studying in that university, then I guess, these are telltale signs. I guess the agencies, without harassing any student, they should at least find out what is the financial trail. Who is funding that organization? What are these students doing? What are their backgrounds? Now, just briefly, I would like to mention this Dr. Umar, who died in this suicide blast, who was the main perpetrator. I'm told that back in 2020 or 3-4 years back, his activities did come under the notice of agencies. This is something which I'm telling because I spoke to some officers who were working on the ground, and they already heard of, this nexus of doctors, and this man was, probably under the watch. So I think, if you do a sustained monitoring and intelligence agencies are active, by active I say not reactive, particularly active in keeping a very, I would say, advanced posture of monitoring and scrutinizing these things, then I guess you'll be able to diffuse such attacks and act much in advance.
Absolutely, not doing it so much on the face, not by scaring anybody or in a reactionary manner, but nevertheless in a modern, in a technically driven manner, we can keep an eye, we can step up our vigilance. But you raised one point which I want to understand more from General Hasnain here. Sir, is it a problem that our networks are not yet equipped enough or trained enough to deal with this sudden phenomenon that is now hitting us all these radicalization in our campuses and among the professionals. Are we equipped enough for it?
That's a very, very interesting question, I must say. And there is no black and white answer for this, but I will attempt to try and analyze it for you. First of all, I think we need to compliment and thank the Indian intelligence agencies and the security forces for having kept India very safe for the better part of the last 15 years.
That is right.
Except for Jammu and Kashmir, we have had no such problems as in the rest of the country. But having said that, the nature of the issue today, the problem of terrorism today, demands that it's not just the role and responsibility of the intelligence services.
Yes.
It is the citizen intelligence which has to come into it. Every citizen is a warrior, every citizen is a sleuth, every citizen is a person who is looking at security as a security analyst. So in other words, you must have heard this terminology which is called whole of government approach. Now instead of whole of government approach, it should be whole of nation and whole of society approach. Everyone must become a warrior and start looking at it from this angle.
But to do that, sir, I think we also need certain orientation, some kind of guidance.
Absolutely.
A citizen may or may not actually be able to detect something, even if they see it, because their eyes are not trained.
I'm glad you're asking such intelligent questions in this show. Absolutely, this is the core issue out here. What has to happen is that awareness of people has to be increased. Instead of using YouTube only for entertainment, YouTube should be used with hundreds of videos which should be educating people on all these tenets of terrorism that we are looking at the moment. That is the meaning of whole of nation approach. In the sense, people do not even know perhaps enough about the history of terror in India. I was speaking to a young person from Jammu and Kashmir who was not even aware that in the 90s, we had terrorists from all over the world who were operating in Jammu and Kashmir. It is not on record anywhere. So
and
as a result, people
Burhan
think...
Wani was made into a hero.
Absolutely.
Only through social media.
Social media.
Despite all that he did.
So social media can be used the other way around also. I mean, we should not feel vulnerable that social media is being used or targeted against the nation. We should be using social media against the terrorists. That would be the pushback.
Thank you for bringing in this angle into the conversation, sir. But I am afraid that is all the time we have on this episode. We will carry on this conversation in some other show. General Hasnain, thank you for taking out the time for such an important discussion on a weekend. And Abhinav Pandya, always so gracious to join us in all our conversations. And yes, it is true that while technology is being harnessed by the enemies of the nation to spread their message, the same technology, instead of criticizing it or feeling vulnerable, as the general has just pointed out, we should use the same technology and harness it to spread awareness among people. And it is only when every soldier of the country, the society, gears up to fight the enemies that we will be winning this battle for sure. On that note, it's a wrap up on Media Scan for this weekend. But do join us next weekend for another subject of national importance. Till then, namaskar.